Welcome to the Puberty Prof Podcast, where information and tools are shared to help you have conversations about puberty and other growing up topics. Here is your host, Lori Reichel, the Puberty Prof, a nationally recognized health educator, author of the award-winning book, Common Questions Children Ask About Puberty, and creator of the Talk Puberty app.
Hi, welcome to the Puberty Prof Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lori Reichel, the Puberty Prof. Our last episode went over some things of what is normal as a person grows up from being a child to the preteen to a teenager. And we had Jessica Matheson, who is the SHAPE Teacher of the Year for Health Education. She joined us to go over what is normal, and she's actually back to talk more about, if you're concerned about what's normal or what's not normal, where a young person can go to get correct/reliable information. So today's episode is, where do preteens go to get correct/reliable information? And I thank you, Jessica, for returning to us in this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
But would you mind reminding us about your background?
Yeah, so I am proud to say that I am from Minnesota, so we cannot leave that out. So health and PE teacher from Minnesota. I am typically teaching high school. I have a little bit experience, 7th and 8th grade, just for one school year in a smaller school. But love what I do, love what I teach. And this year I'm kind of in a little unique situation where I am just kind of following my heart. And I resigned this summer, and I'm now, as I tell my biological kids, teaching other teachers to teach.
Excellent. And how old are your children?
So we're in the thick of things. 7, almost 6, and 4. Whew.
Wonderful. So you're a pretty busy person. And something that some people don't understand about health and physical educators is that when we get trained, although we might teach at one level, like the high school level, we are trained K through 12.
Yes. Yep. And even I have my developmental and adaptive PE certification here in Minnesota. So I'm preschool through 12.
Wow. Wow. And if we look at, if you're trained really for health education, I don't know if you were trained in this, but since you got your license, you probably learned how to be skill-based in health education. That is not about all this information, this throwing of facts to these young people, but it's about how to live a healthy and happy life. Would you agree with that?
Yes. And you are right on. I was right at the change of things in college. I was very fortunate to have a fantastic professor who was all skills based, but that's not what I experienced as a student myself. So I came in at a good time with a fantastic person to go skills based.
Excellent. Last time in the last episode, we talked about that there are these norms that puberty happens, and not only those body changes, but we have the social, mental, emotional changes. And we can also have the spiritual, if I say, with the value clarification and all. But we referred to in the last episode about, although we have these norms and then the non-norms, because everybody's different, but it's important to know, if you have questions, where to go for correct information. So today's episode is going to discuss how we can make sure that a young person goes to a reliable resource. And what do you recommend for this?
Sounds good. Yes. So this, in the health classroom, this is all standard 3, accessing valid and reliable information and resources. So let's do this.
Okay. Do you use an acronym, like when you've taught? What acronym? I'm seeing she's shaking her head. Yes. What acronym do you use to make sure that people go to reliable resources?
So when I'm teaching in my classroom, again, this is going to be high school, I use access, ACCESS. So we're making sure that our source is accurate. Is there an author listed, or is it confirmed by another source? Is there an agenda or a specific target audience? Is it credible? Who or what is this information coming from? Is this loaded with advertisements? Trying to pay attention to that. Is it current? So is this something, especially with health information, ever changing? Is this something that was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Is this something last week? How current is it? The ease and use of access. So is it easy to read? Is it understandable? Is it going to be in language that I can interpret and use? The situation. So what types of information is there and who should use the information? And then support. Is it supported by appropriate research or reputable sources? So ACCESS, accuracy, credibility, current, ease of use, situations, and support. Now, I've heard of other teachers, especially in the middle school lens, using CRAP. The CRAP test is what they use: the currency, reliability, authority, and the purpose and point of view. So I've actually thought of switching to that because, well, one, it's fun just to say crap, and two, because it's a lot easier as well. So access or CRAP, both fantastic ways and acronyms to kind of check on that valid and reliable information.
And if anybody that's listening in wants to have that acronym, like if you want to print it out or you want to have more information of how to go deeper into each of those, like for access, the ACCESS, like every letter stands for something, you can certainly go to Shape America because there's information there. I know RMC Health also has information. So these are some reliable resources people can go to learn more about this acronym. And if I wanted to go a little bit more specific about when we talk to young people, and I'll say to preteens about reliable resources, are there 2 or 3 actual key people that a young person might go to that you would recommend?
Yeah. So what I always reference, instead of saying an adult, I always say trusted adult. So what does a trusted adult mean? Okay, first, I want this to be a person that my kids can go to. They're going to be there. They are available. I want this person to be trustworthy. They're not going to kind of beat around the bush. They're going to tell you the truth. And it's going to be accurate as well. I want this trusted adult to keep things confidential to a certain extent, especially as a teacher. We're mandated reporters. There are some things that we cannot keep confidential, but for the most part, keeping most things confidential. And then also what I always tell my students, what I love is live some life. Find someone who's experienced some things and can actually give you not the textbook, this is what's supposed to happen, but like, hey, this is really what happens. And let me tell you about it. So I always recommend trusted adults, and they're conversations that we have in my classroom all the time. So who I recommend, an adult family member, or even a friend's family member, someone that's easy to access as well. Maybe a teacher or a coach, someone that you see during the school day and that you can have conversations with, maybe away from home, maybe a doctor or a church member. There are multiple trusted adults in the community that you can find.
Yeah. Yeah. And certainly, like, I love that word trust, because it's like, and that to me, when I explain trust, it means that in your gut, you feel comfortable. You don't feel any awkwardness. Because something that I've done with elementary school age children, as well as preteen, like that early middle school, is we'll do that outline of the hand to talk about, it's kind of like around Thanksgiving, some people might do it to draw a turkey, but it's, okay, who are my trusted people in my life? And I get really specific that, if it is my Aunt Loretta, I put her like maybe on the thumb, she's a cool person, that kind of thing. But is it the nurse at the school? Is it my physical education teacher who I just seem to connect with? And in the center, I like to tell young people, put yourself, because I want you, anytime that you have a question, I want you to trust your gut, or maybe I should say it as your heart. Like, follow your heart, that you have the right to go to a trusted person to ask questions and to get age and developmentally appropriate answers.
Yeah, I love that activity, and one that unfortunately it's not as creative as the hand and drawing. I do in my health classes on like the second or third day of class. I call it a health scavenger hunt. And I'll share this with you. You can put it in the notes for anyone who's listening. They can have
Excellent.
access to this. They can modify it to their own needs. I have my students actually take clipboards, and this is on paper, like no devices. They take their clipboards and they go around the school and they find different people in different scenarios. I've got the principal and the counselor, but I also have a trusted teacher and a trusted staff member listed. I have our police liaison officer, our school psychologist. I have all of that listed. And what they do then is they interact with this person and they ask, how can I contact you? Because that's the most important. So not only to have this person, but then having the access to this person as well. In addition to that, which maybe is a good segue beyond the people, are those resources that are out there as well. So my health scavenger hunt that we do after they go through the building, then they'll take out the device and they'll start to research different organizations, different nonprofits, different sources of all different things for health within not only our community and our state, but I do nationwide as well on that whole scale.
So are you referring to, when you take out your device, you're talking about the phones or the laptops, tablets, in which they're online resources, but potentially also in the community they can physically go to?
Yep. So kind of all that are included. So I want my students not only to know what's there nationwide from their phone, from their Chromebooks, from whatever device they're using at home, but I also want them to know what's literally right down the street.
Okay.
Where, like, if you need to take yourself and go somewhere, where can you go? So sometimes they're looking up the address or the phone number, just so they know where these things are. And I mean, truth, I had a student come to me and he was like, yeah, Matheson, you know that stupid scavenger hunt you had us do? Well, my girlfriend had to go and get a little too much information there to Mrs. Matheson, but she had to go and get a product because
Mhm.
of some behaviors that had
Right.
happened the previous weekend. But he felt it was awesome because he felt comfortable. I was clearly a trusted adult that he could tell that. But then he remembered where that source was within the community that they could go to, which was awesome.
Well, do you have any reliable resources that you know that are online or in the community that are specific to puberty?
Okay,
Anything that you
so a
recommend?
maze. I mean, hopefully everyone's been to a maze by now, but if you haven't, you have to check out a maze. They have like fantastic videos that are they're nice and short and sweet. They get to the point, but they're kid friendly language and they're relatable as well. I love kids' health. And then for those teenage years, they've got the teen health as well.
Mhm.
All valid, all reliable information where teens can go to get information.
And although I usually recommend people to go to an EDU, like online, an EDU or .org, I know there's another organization that was just created within the past year or so. I did some writing on puberty with them, and it's called bloomforall.com, in which they do have some edus.orgs through that website. And I really respect what they're trying to do is have a lot of information and where to get more information, like resources on there. They call it hubs on their site. And again, they go to professional organizations and professional educators, that kind of thing. So I recommend them. Now,
Yeah, you just brought up an interesting point about, kind of looking at the URL, the .edu, the .org,
mhm,
the .gov, the .mil, whatever it is. And, I would say as educators used to be, so it can't be a .com. It has to be a .org. It has to be, and I think times are changing. You just brought up a fantastic resource that I'm going to jot down and I'm going to check out myself. Um, there are a lot more resources out there that are .com that
mhm,
are providing valid and reliable information. So that's where, as we were talking about that access checklist or the CRAP test, is really taking
mhm,
a look at what's out there, because there are some fantastic .com websites out there that give great information.
yes. And would you remind us of what access stands for again?
So that would be the accuracy, the credibility, making sure it's current and that it's easy to use, that there are the situations, like what types of information are there and who should use it, and then support as well. So is it supported by that appropriate research, the reputable sources as well?
Yeah, excellent. Now, a personal question for you, and you have the right to pass here. Do you remember when you were going through those preteen changes, whether it be for your physical changes, your mental, emotional, etc.? Was there a resource that you relied on?
I would say that's probably why I'm here right now. How many health teachers would say their health teacher? And I still keep in contact with my health
Wow.
teacher. She's become a friend, but she's a positive role model, a mentor to me. But she was the one, that I could go to. And I had four fantastic health teachers that just come to my
Hmm.
mind right away. That I could go to, two in middle school and two in high school. And the one in high school, or the one of them from middle school, is the one that I'm referencing, that I kept in contact all the way through, even to today. Um, so I would say that my parents are also great. That I was very fortunate to be in a situation where if I ever felt like I needed to talk about something, I could do that with my parents as well.
Yeah.
But I recognize that not everyone has that, and I think that that's kind of where um, it's shaped me as the health teacher that I am today. Like I want to be that person, that trusted adult that my students can come to, if one, if they don't have someone, or two, if they need someone else to
Yeah.
go to as well.
Hmm. Yeah. And I know for me, I went to the library and looked in books because I'm a great reader. I love diagrams too. So you can refer to your library. You can talk to the librarian for a section that does have things about puberty or mental health and emotional health. How do we cope with our feelings and our moodiness? And I'm trying to think of who I went to. I think it was the school nurse that I spoke with about menstrual cramps, because certain times when I had my period, I might get some cramping. And I was introduced to, well, a heating pad in the abdominal area, and certainly yoga stretches and things like that, and what foods to not eat or to eat more of right before my period and stuff. So those were my two resources, the library and a nurse.
You know, and as you mentioned that, you think of in the menstrual product packages, the
Mm,
pamphlet, that you unfold and oh my
yeah.
gosh, I don't know how many times I read that. I'd say that that was probably my biggest one piece source of information that was probably the most helpful,
Yeah.
was just that little, and it's always folded up so small and curled around
Mm-hmm.
in the box, but I mean, how many of us learned our information just from that too, in
Yes.
regards to menstruation,
Mm-hmm.
that keep putting those little pieces of paper that are folded up 100 times in there. We'll unfold them, we'll read them.
Yep. And then you just reminded me, I think it was my sister that helped me learn how to shave my legs. Because when I wanted to shave my legs, I was like, how do I do it? Although my mother taught me how to shave my armpits. I was in sixth grade, and she told me what to use. But then I used my father's Barbasol shaving cream, and I smelled like what's considered more men's cologne, and kids were like, who has on men's cologne? And it was coming from my armpit. So
And you're like,
I actually learned the hard way. I was a resource person too, to learn to make a mistake, because I didn't want to smell like that again. That was just me.
but I mean, and honestly, that's how a lot of learning happens.
Yeah.
Is, oh, well, I'm not gonna do that again because that's what happened. And in the last session, we were talking about being uncomfortable. Like, as uncomfortable as it is, it's normal. And that's kind of, you learn as you go.
Yeah. And if I then, because you referred to the normal, one of the norms too about growing up is that you are gonna make some, if I say it, mistakes. And please, 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 please don't consider that an unfortunate thing, because sometimes we grow the most from the mistakes that we make.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would say that's the biggest growth because, like I tell my students, like sometimes it's not the best to know what you want. It can be better to know what you don't want or
Yeah.
what you don't want to do. Sometimes that's valuable in itself. It's just the
Mhm.
what not to do.
Yes. And which, if you're curious about like those pros and cons, and actually it refers to decision making, because there's some acronyms we use in the health class for decision making skills. That actually is going to be referred to in another episode of the Puberty Prof podcast. So please look for that one, if that was already released, depending upon the schedule here, or it's going to come out. So we are discussing all those life skills in the Puberty Prof podcast. Before we go, Jessica, if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, would you mind telling us how they can find you? Like, is there like a Twitter account they can reach out to you on, or how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'd say the easiest is probably my Twitter account. So it's at Coach Matheson, and we'll get that down in the notes for you. And I'll also put my email as well if anyone wanted to reach me. So on my Twitter account, I do a kind of a little plug for myself here, health ed question of the day. So we can talk about any of these. You know what? And I'm going to throw in a puberty one here. I'll throw it in. How do you teach puberty in health ed? We'll throw that in, but I do a health ed question of the day, and I like to share my content and things that I'm doing in my classroom, sharing ideas. I'm not the teacher that I am today if it weren't for others, so I hope to share as well.
Yeah. I mean, we get stronger when we collaborate and we share our ideas, for sure. I totally do that too. So, well, I thank you so much for being here today. Again, Jessica, this is your second episode that you're on with the Puberty Prof. Any last words you want to say to our audience?
No, I think, just I really want, especially for those preteens and teens that are listening. I know you're on social media a lot. I am too. Just don't compare yourselves. Don't believe everything that you see or hear. Use that access, use that crap test. Make sure that it's valid and reliable before you go and do something or believe something. And don't be comparing yourself to what you see on social media as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for being
Thank
here
you.
today. And to our audience members, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to connect with Jessica at her Twitter account or her email. It will be in today's description for sure. You can check that out. Also, feel free to connect with me at pubertyprof@gmail.com or pubertyprof.com. That's my website. I also want to remind everybody that if you are curious about more things that young people are going through or want to know about, check out the Talk Puberty app. It's found on iOS products right now, and it's TALK Puberty. That's an app in which there are sections about what's common for children to go through, for most boys to go through, most girls. And then there's open-ended questions, which really lead to great conversations between trusted adults and young people. So please check that out. And again, get in touch with us if you have any comments or questions. So thanks for listening in today, and I hope you have a happy and healthy day.
Thank you for listening to the Puberty Prof Podcast, where information and tools are shared to help you have conversations about puberty and other growing up topics. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow the Puberty Prof on Twitter or Instagram. The Puberty Prof, Lori Reichel, wants to hear from you. Go to pubertyprof.com or click on the link in this episode's description. There you can find more information, as well as ask questions to be answered by the Puberty Prof in a future episode. That's pubertyprof.com. Also, remember to check out the Talk Puberty app and the book, Common Questions Children Ask About Puberty. Until next time, this is the Puberty Prof Podcast, where information and tools are shared to help you have conversations about puberty and other growing up topics.